This is the eLearning Podcast, episode number 23.
The irony is a little bit that all the solutions of our problems seem to be only one click away, right? It's like they're actually out there. If you find them at the right minute, you get access to them most of the time for free. They are well explained. They are hiding somewhere, one click away, but you need to do the right click. You need to find the right address if you want.
Welcome to the eLearning Podcast from LMSPulse.com. My name is Stephen Laddick, and I'm the director at LMSPulse. If you are a regular LMSPulse reader, you know of the countless and ever-growing number of platforms out there to launch a course. But they all operate under one assumption, that you've already done the job of building a quality course with state-of-the-art tools and following the latest research and insight. My guest for today's episode, Philip von Heydebreck and Achim Rothe, asked themselves, what if there was a way to help people one step earlier in the process? With the goal of helping lifelong learners optimize the process of research, they recently launched Trickle, an app that not only helps you curate and consume the great stuff that's available online, but one that connects you with other learners. Trickle is designed to help you share the content that interests you, get feedback on your creations, and even connect you with like-minded learners and creators, making the process of high-quality course creation all that much smoother. In this promising conversation, we talk about microlearning, which in 2021 should pretty much be synonymous with spaced repetition, but also with early and instant feedback for both learner and teacher. We also talk about why Phil and Achim believe that while there are countless apps that would satisfy the needs of lifelong learners, it's worth building new tools and experience that put a lifelong learning practice at the center of the table. We also talk about our thoughts on why, despite the growing opportunity on education and learning startups, there is little sense of community amongst the founders of those startups. We also talk about the challenges for educational content creators in today's state of information saturation, and the ways in which Phil and Achim's app aims to speed up the information vetting process. We finally talk about the challenges of user-generated content in education and how a paradigm of community-generated content may be able to help the creation of great e-learning content, but maybe even tackle the spread of fake news on social networks. But before we get started, a quick word from our sponsors.
The eLearning Podcast is sponsored by the eLearning Success Summit. Learn from more than 40 experts how to teach, work, and learn online without being overwhelmed. Get your free ticket to the summit at elearningsuccesssummit.com and LMSPulse.com, your best source for news, information, and resources for e-learning professionals for more than 10 years. Get our free roundup of the week's top news at LMSPulse.com.
Hello, Phil. Hello, Achim. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you.
Gentlemen, you guys both work with an app called Trickle.app. You both work for a company called The Beautiful Company, which, I mean, who doesn't want to work for a company called The Beautiful Company? So it's going to be an exciting talk today. Where do we find you both sitting today? Are you both in the same country, same place? Achim, why don't you tell us first, where are you at?
Yeah, same country, but different city. So I'm in Berlin here, Germany.
Awesome.
And Phil is in Munich.
All right, Phil, you're in
Munich. I'm in Munich, where I live with my wife and kids.
Super cool. And I'm in Colorado, in the United States. We're recording this in August of 2020, just for posterity's sake. You know what it's like in the United States right now in August. It's a bit of craziness. That's to be nice about it. What are things like in Munich and Berlin?
I think Germany's dealt with the pandemic relatively well in comparison to some other countries. So we're kind of we've definitely emerged from lockdown, and life is sort of returning back to normal for us. I mean, we're a completely remote company. So during the pandemic, aside from the kids being home, things didn't change all that much. I mean, the disruption of having the kids, 3 small children at home was a pretty big one. But, the working from home thing is kind of every day for us. So yeah, Germany's emerging from the pandemic. I mean, there's still no vaccine in sight, but I think we're doing pretty well here.
Super cool. Yeah, as everyone here listens knows, I also have 3 kids. I completely sympathize with the disruption that they bring to your life. So wait, Berlin, no, Berlin,
Munich.
and Munich. And what about you, Achim? You've had the same experience. Things are going well in your part of Germany?
Yeah, generally, I think we cannot complain. I mean, these are serious times, and a lot of people are either on one end or the other end of the spectrum. But a lot of my friends, a lot of people I know also from the tech industry, of course, they are pretty fortunate to work in an environment where they get more of the benefits and less of the shock of the changing times.
Wow. Yeah. And again, this is a great time for e-learning as well, which, we're here to talk about your solution for e-learning. Achim, why don't you tell us about, the genesis of Trickle.app? Where did this come from? Whose idea was it? It's super new. It's just on the market now. What was the aha moment that made you guys invest all your time and energy into this?
Yeah, sure. So it was actually Phil and I studied together. We went on a European track where we studied in Paris and Oxford, so moved quite a bit. And then we stayed friends, but moved in different directions professionally. We both studied business. And but we are both lifelong learners, and we stayed in touch. Our families, visited each other and so on, and we exchanged all the good things we learned, on the side. The problem was, like, how do you share this great information that you encounter, and how do you make most of it also for yourself? Because I don't know if you know that feeling, but you encounter all these great sources out there, all these articles, videos, websites, tools, courses, and so on. But it feels a little bit like overwhelmed, right? Especially with social media like Twitter, it just, all the things come random at you. And so that's kind of how the idea emerged. And Phil and I talked about it. We both, it kind of emerged from us. And the idea behind Trickle is that you, first of all, you have a place where you capture all this great information that you find. There are actually 2 angles, and I will explain both. The one is the capturing, where you, if you encounter a good video, a good website, and so on, and you think that's valuable, then you can save it to Trickle, to your own Trickle account. And it's a little bit like a bookmark collection, but much more, as I'm about to explain.
Sure.
And the other side is you're actually curating, right, for yourself. And then the question is, how do you make most out of it? And from there, the idea came that you need somehow to include your voice. And you already said, well, Trickle is a micro-learning platform. And that's because for these sources, we encourage you to write down your insights for yourself, like little notes. You could also compare them to little blog articles. And then you can, save them to one, we call it stream. You could think of it like a folder, and but you give it a certain structure. And over time, a story emerges. Over time, for example, for a topic that interests you, all your insights, all your knowledge emerge, and you have created something that is ideal to share. And that's the other side of Trickle. You can be on the receiving end of this, and we encourage you to go to trickle.app and have a look at it, because there you find ready, streams where people did just that. A lot of them in the beginning were done by Phil. He did some great research and a great content adaptation there, and shared his knowledge for various subjects on Trickle, on the Trickle platform. And that makes it very easy to follow a thought, save the good stuff that you find in these streams with a click of a button, right? It's very easy. You don't need to get hold of a URL or a website address or think about where to save it, where you find it later. You just save, and the rest is done by Trickle. It's like you find it in your account. And that's ideal for microlearning, because the platform gives you the structure to continue where you left off. And that was also something that we discussed a lot in the past, that it's said in a way, you always start from scratch. You always have these little, you research something, you scratch the surface, then something comes up, you change topics, and then you have to kind of start again. And you often start really, with another article that explains again the basis and doesn't go one step deeper. And that's the second side of Trickle, like getting good information from people that you can get to know on the platform, that you trust. And on the other hand, you can use it for your own learning, very independent, very like slowly trickling your own knowledge into the platform and making most out of it.
So if I'm thinking about this, I'm immediately thinking Evernote, Pocket, Slack channels, these kinds of things. Phil, maybe what's the differentiator here between other personal information curating apps that are out there right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess what our product is aimed at is really a segment that I don't think is well served. It's aimed at lifelong learners, and why is that? Because we are both lifelong learners, and we as Achim explained, we exchange knowledge with each other, and really struggled to really capture it. And Achim is an avid Evernote user, and he sometimes shares his files with me, and it's unbelievable all the stuff he's got in there. But it turns into this thing that you need to manage, and it becomes quite large. And it's really in a format that's heavily text based, and you could pretty it up, I'm sure, but it's not designed for the lifelong learner, the person who's really doing that kind of self-directed research and independent learning. The aim of Evernote is not to it's kind of a repository rather than somewhere where you're actively learning, you're kind of formulating things in your own words. So that was really the goal for us in creating Trickle. And I think the one of the key differentiators between us and those platforms that you mentioned is really the visual nature of it, the focus on micro learning. So when you access a piece of learning material on Trickle, it's structured in a way that it's a sequence of micro learning drips. We call them drips. Mm-hmm. And in effect, you're drip learning these things, and you don't need to focus 2 hours to kind of consume this topic and trying to learn it. You can take it in stages. And the author of this micro learning sequence has put together a storyline that can kind of show you the terrain. Where is this knowledge, and what does it look like, and what do I need to know? Who are the experts, and what are the major great sources that I can tap into in order to really deepen my knowledge? Maybe there's a great TED Talk, or even an academic article, or there's a lecture by a professor who does this all the time. So we don't want to be the people that claim to be the authority in knowing everything. We are relying on really external information, but we're presenting it in a way that people can really easily consume. And then there's another part of Trickle I'm sure we'll come to in a minute, which is and Achim's kind of mentioned it already, in terms of being able to actively learn, formulate your knowledge in your own language, and then be able to share it with the community, share it with your friends, and start to develop that, and maybe one day even publish it so that other people can learn from it as well.
So yeah, I took time, before our interview, I looked through not only the promotional material for the app, but I also just sort of looked at, how is it built out? Extremely, nice design, very, easy to navigate, visual representation, as well as, I don't mean this in a negative way, but accessible in that it's similar to other platforms for learning, right? You've got your drips on one side, you click on one, and then the content comes out, much like any micro blogging site. Let's talk about the app itself for a second. And I mean, it's new, right? Like you guys just launched either last week or a couple of weeks ago as we're recording this. Like, has the uptick been great there? I mean, have you seen a lot of users come in, or how'd that go?
Yeah, it's been an extremely exciting week and a half for us. We launched last week on Monday. We exited our beta product phase where it's kind of more of testing, and the marketing's very low key. And we went out on a platform called Product Hunt. Probably not a household name for most people, but in the startup world, it's a big deal. And it's kind of the go-to place for any startup. When they launch their product, they go out on this website. And on any given day, you've got maybe 30, 50 startups competing for the attention of this community. And the great thing about this community is it's really the early adopters and the opinion forming people they can really be a springboard to really change the game and increase your audience drastically. So we went on there and I'd done some research in advance and realized there's not much learning focused apps and services on there at all. So in advance, it wasn't clear how it would go. So it was a bit of a gamble, and we were absolutely blown away by the interest and the feedback we got, the amazing the way, I mean, we spent half the day going refresh and watching Trickle raise in the ranks, and we actually ended the day unbelievably in position 1. So we were number 1 product of the day. We were super excited. And you know, the greatest thing about it was really just to have a large amount of people come to the product and really engage with it, and really and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. People saying, you know, I love this idea, and giving us ideas of what we should do next, and all this stuff. So the conversations we had off the back of this campaign were really unbelievable, and it's kind of a super fun time for us at the moment.
That's congratulations. That's nothing would, you know, suck more than, you know, launching an app and then total silence, right? So to get that kind of really massive validation is fantastic. Why lifelong learners? I mean, how are you going to I guess that is your differentiator. You're saying, look, we're for the lifelong learner. We're for the everyday, you know, person who is interested in pulling, you know, their knowledge out of their head, as opposed to other learning management systems, right? That are either focused very much on the higher education or K through 12 space, or corporate America, or the corporate universe.
Absolutely.
And many of them overlap, right? That we're familiar with them on the show. Walk me through that decision. I don't know, Achim, if this is a better question for you or whatnot. Like, how do you differentiate that? And then how do you get people to show up consistently? And how do you, you know, is this gamified in some way? Are people enticed in some ways? Is there rewards for doing this, et cetera? Go.
You take this one.
Yeah. So the thing is, well, to answer the first part of your question, why going at lifelong learners? That's because we were scratching our own itch, right? On the one hand. On the other hand, it's that we think like everybody noticed, right? The world is changing rapidly and faster and faster. And the irony is a little bit that all the solutions of our problems seem to be only one click away, right? It's like they're actually out there. If you find them at the right minute, you get access to them most of the time for free. They are well explained. You know, they are hiding somewhere, one click away, but you need to do the right click. You need to find the right address if you want. And you can research for it, right? That's fine. But then you are actually doing research. You have to vet the information. You have to start from scratch. You have to get to, you know, the right order and kind of make a lot of decisions. And that's exhausting, and you cannot do it for everything. So like learning is so crucial for everyone. And in that way, Trickle is very, it's a value-driven company. It's our mission to make this accessible to as many people as possible, because we strongly believe that solves a lot of problems. Whenever I see big problems in the world, I always think, probably it's the same for you, Stephen, of education, of learning opportunities, right? If we can just get people to learn quicker, to make use of the great information out there, then we would, you know, that's kind of the master. It's not only the master skill for yourself to learn, but it's also the master solution for more or less everything. If people can get hold of that information and make most out of it. And we don't see that a lot on social media. We don't see it a lot in like there's this attention economy going on. There are a lot of criticism. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because
I will.
Most people, but And there's the corporate world, which is totally valid, and there's a lot of money. But if we start there, we are very afraid that we would get stuck there, right? That we want to be very careful to start the right way and to proceed the right way. That's also, you mentioned it before, that we called our company intentionally Beautiful Company, because we are on a mission, right, to make lifelong learning effortless. And Trickle is our product, right? Trickle is only a solution for that, but we want to do it the right way. And I think the second part of your question was more like how do we keep people engaged? And there a strong hypothesis, and I see it everywhere validated, is that people want to learn, right? You sometimes encounter people that are very resistant, that they don't, you know, they seem as if they reject new information. But often behind that, I see that they're just afraid, they think they cannot do it, or they don't have the information, or they can't trust this information, and so on. So our belief is that if you make a tool as simple as possible, in the most effective way as possible, that is, and you mentioned the design, that is very approachable, that is very easy to access, that focuses on kind of truth and that focuses on good information on the user, right? So side note, we believe we won't run ads, right? We won't have a business model, an economic engine fueled by ads, because that would interfere with our mission. And so simple design, letting people capture whatever they want, giving them access to good information that's already out there in the form of streams, in the form of other people. We can talk about different aspects, like how do you trust the content, because a lot of people have
that's
in
my
mind.
Like, I'm waiting for that question. That's my next question is, okay, let's just say I've got, 100 million people that show up to this thing. It's the Wikipedia problem. It's the social media problem, right? So Wikipedia solved it by essentially crowdsourcing information, and then the truth bubbles at the top. Social media has nothing like that, and that is the massive fail of it, right? The massive fail of it is that then the company has to then curate the content, and we're watching that play out in any number of forums across the world right now.
Totally.
So what's your validation process, not only for making sure that just good quality stuff gets up there, but then truth?
I'll pass that to Phil, because he's the expert for that, but let me do one small introduction. Sure. Because it's important that you have in mind that Trickle is really a platform. We are not out there to create new courses and to author them. Like, we are not the content creators. We build the roads, right, for that. And of course, to get this product out there, we have to start with something. But we believe humans learn from humans, right? And not from corporations so much, not from, like, you look at books, right? What book do you have from Amazon? I mean, like the author Amazon, right? That's not going to happen. You have always an author, because you want to trust that person. You want to somehow figure out in your head maybe what's this person like before you accept information from them. So that's the basis. And now I move over to Phil for how do we get that started, and what are our thoughts for keeping the quality high.
Yeah, so we thought about this one a lot, because it's no secret that there are plenty of people out there willing to post SEO content, and
anything.
If you look at the comments on YouTube are infamous for just like, why would you write something like that? And I think it comes down to two things. One is the reputation of the people on the websites, and I guess in some cases, Twitter is kind of a counter argument for this. But I think if you look on a platform like LinkedIn versus a platform like YouTube, people using their real names in a community where the outcome is important. So the outcome there is employability, and people seeing their comments could be their future employer. And if you respect the community you're posting to, then you're not going to post nonsense, garbage, flame wars. You're going to be very careful that what you post makes sense and is respecting other people on the platform, and sheds a good light on you as a person. Because we think Trickle, in one sense, is a platform for people to showcase their expertise. It's a place where they can say, look, I've got this knowledge, and I'm in the position that I can communicate it to you. I can show you I can almost teach you these things and share this information with you. The other aspect is discoverability. So how we wanted a really low barrier for publishing content on Trickles. So if you sign up, Stephen, today, or anybody listening signs up today, you can immediately start to create your own content. And publishing is kind of one step further, but it's not a very big step at all. And what happens when you do publish something is that your profile as a user becomes visible. It becomes, you have your personal profile, and people, if you want to publish something, people will then see, okay, something's been published and this is the person who published it. So that's the reputation piece coming out there. But initially, it doesn't mean it's going to be very discoverable, because it'll be on your profile and not anywhere else yet. So we have we're developing mechanisms, sort of a discoverability mechanism, where you can say, okay, how good is this content? And if it is extremely good, then it kind of like the upvote system we talked about on Product Hunt, the best stuff moves up forward and becomes more discoverable, and we feature it on we call our catalog sort of the discover page, and we kind of go, here's some great stuff, people have been liking it. At the moment, we're small enough so I can get really involved in content, and I'm known to call up an author and say, hey, I think you can improve, this drip or that drip, and this is how I would do it. Obviously, at scale, that won't work anymore, but we want to build a community where other people can take on that role, kind of like the way Wikipedia does, but also have the automation through, we've talked about mechanisms like ratings or upvotes, or even the number of quality sources that you've listed in that drip, because sources are an extremely important element that can give your content more weight over other content. Fantastic.
What's the differentiator right now? If I'm listening to the podcast, I'm probably already overwhelmed a little bit, with my kids. My kids have Power School, Seesaw, Google Classroom. We've got Zoom, we've got Slack, we've got any number of elements. Then I've got my corporate system at my work, and then I've got blah blah blah. What's the differentiator that I'm going to choose this to do it? Is it just ease of use? Is it the beauty of the app? Is it's on my phone and it's so accessible? Is there another hook that you guys are putting out in the universe right now to sort of make it cut through the noise and say this is what you want to choose?
I would make the case that nothing like this, what we are doing, exists at the moment from the angle where we're coming from. So there are apps that allow you to save content, for example. Or let's start on the other end. There are apps that allow you to do courses, right? They offer courses. Sure. And what they all do is they offer the courses on their platforms. So they have incentives to that you prefer their courses over other courses, even if they are free alternatives, even if there are other courses on a different language. I mean, let's be clear, everyone learns differently, right? So we would never try to create courses that appeal to everyone, right? So we don't create really courses at all. What we built with Trickle is a platform that let you kind of collect, manage, organize, and share other sources of information, of learning material. So there are other apps that allow you to save bookmarks, to take notes, to, like you said, to communicate, to share, like Slack and so on. But they all come from a different angle. They don't come from learning. They come from manage the sources that you still want to read, or manage your communication and so on. Trickle starts with lifelong learning and also has a certain, like I mentioned again, beautiful company, we have a certain way to do things. So we will safeguard, we will always think of the user first, and we will do it in a very open way, very accessible way, but also in a way to not lock you in, right? You can easily add stuff to Trickle and also get it out in any form that you want. We still have to work on this. We have a long roadmap, of course. But
that's where I want to go next. So help me understand this. So I like to climb mountains. I'm from Colorado. We got a lot of big mountains here. Let's just say there's 500 people who want to, talk about how to climb a mountain, right? How to, what's the, leave no trace, and what are the best safety practices, and bring enough water, and this kinds of thing. Do you discover each one of those things and then put them all into a thing? Is it through a tagging system? Is it through, how does that, how do we get to that place where we've had other people on the show who kind of start to talk about content hubs, which it sounds something like Trickle is, where then we start to curate that knowledge and say, hey, wait, look, there is, I don't want to say a universal answer, but we're starting to talk about this. Lots of people talking about the same thing. Here is a source of truth. Is there any sort of thinking like that behind the app? Or I haven't obviously gone far enough into that to see that yet.
Yeah, I'd love to take this, Phil. Is it okay?
Oh.
It's a good example of what we call kind of trickle flow. Let me just point that out for you. So you're like into mountains and into mountain climbing and so on. So I'm sure you know many good sources, many good blogs, many good articles that you came across in the past. And if I know, usually now that we talk, after the show, I would ask you, well, I'm interested in mountain climbing. Can you, send me some stuff over? Can you point me to some good stuff? And usually what you would think in your head is maybe, I know so much, I have so much good sources, but it's a lot of work to now think about Achim and think about like, what can I send him and to him and how. We combine it in the way, if you would use Trickle, you would start to add whenever you find something, remember the Trickle style, whenever you find something, you add it to Trickle in your mountain stream, right? Mountain climbing stream. So it could be a good blog, it could be a good video, whatever. You put it all in. Over time, I have some streams that have like maybe 200 sources, right? Like that over time, some have only in 1 year, like 3 or something. So it depends, but you will see what really interests you. And then you have just a bookmark collection basically, but you can already take notes specific to this source. You can also tag these sources. So there's a lot of functionality coming, hopefully, but hopefully soon. But at the moment, you have them there. But now the interesting part comes, because some of these sources will share certain things and you will gain insights out of them, right? You said, for example, leave no trace. I'm sure this is a thing, right? You can talk with other mountain climbers about that. So maybe it's mentioned in in one video, in one article, and so on. So you combine those and add them to one drip and title it "Leave No Trace." It is something that every mountain climber should do. And then you explain it in 3 words, in 3 sentences in a very short way, but you attach these good sources. If you would do this for 5 or 10 more things, right? You would learn, because part of learning, as probably all listeners know, is also teaching, right? If you describe it in a way that you want others to understand it, you are challenged to understand it really well. So you do these drips. Now you have your mountain climbing stream with 5 drips and a lot of sources, and they are attached to these drips. Now, if I would ask you, maybe it's still a private stream, but you could share with me a private link to that stream. You can just do me a favor and say like, here, look at this mountain climbing stream. You can learn from that. And then that makes it very accessible. Not only do I get your collection kind of sources that you seem very vetted as valuable, but also you took my hand, or you take my hand in this micro learning step-by-step process whenever I want, right? I'm not depending on your time and so on. I can just go with it and learn it. So that's kind of the flow, right? You start with bookmarks, you add drips, you publish it. Maybe in the beginning you just shared with friends, then you publish it to the community, and then you get feedback. Probably you get other tips from people. You establish yourself as an expert for some people in the mountain climbing field, and that will help you a lot as well. So it's a virtuous circle, we believe.
If I'm not careful, then I'm going to really get beat down, and people think I'm an expert mountain climber.
Yeah.
They're going to start looking to me. So talk to me about doing a technical ascent of, the whatever mountain. Anyway, sorry, Phil, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No worries. No, you didn't interrupt. I wanted to chip in one thing, because I think there was part of your question that you asked that we potentially didn't address, and that was around are we trying to create a sort of single source of the truth like Wikipedia does? So is there going to be one ultimate stream about mountain climbing? And our answer to that at the moment is no, because there's different ways of approaching any topic. And, one expert might explain it one way and somebody else might explain it another way. And as Achim said, there's no best way of learning something. Everybody learns in a different way. So we think that by allowing people to create their content and trying to surface the best information, people will be able to discover the ones that work best for them. And maybe they'll discover, hey, here's an author that really explains things in a way that's right for me. I'm a complete beginner in mountain climbing. I've never done it before. And this works for me. If we were trying to create a single source of the truth, we'd probably get way too much information in there for the complete beginner. People would, they would be linking to academic articles if that kind of thing exists for mountain climbing. And it would get way too complex because we're trying to get everything in there. And, by allowing different views and different versions of things to exist, you can find something that fits for different types of people and different types of learning.
So where's the great answer? Again, we could probably talk about that for the next, 15 minutes, actually probably for the next hour, like what is truth, single source. We're not going to be existential right now. Take me to where the development path is going. Right now, you've got a fantastic microblogging site where people can curate their knowledge, not only share it for just for themselves, but share it with their peers and then publish it to a community where they're going to get feedback. I'm just sort of trying to quickly summarize the quick wins. Where does this go in the future? Is this, gurus start to bubble to the top? People are sort of doing live presentations, live meetups. I could think of 20 things, but where does your development path go for the next, 6 months, year, whatever?
Yeah. So at the moment, we focused on spending a lot of time focusing on fundamental design challenges and core concept of this idea that we had in mind. And I think a lot of it, and is really some core element of learning, right? Like taking these drips as formulating some insights for you or collecting the sources that are out there. And so we built it on a platform that we now need to make much better in the form of much easier to understand. The technical foundation, it should be faster. It should be, more people should understand it quicker and so on. So we have a lot of work in front of us. And but we want to focus on the core mission. The core mission is to learn from others in form of these drips and in the form of streams. Streams are, we could go down a rabbit hole there, but to some degree it could be a next evolution of books, because books are kind of outdated in a way that you cannot easily go to sources or videos and so on the web, even though such things exist, right? So anyway, so this is the stream part, and we want to make it easier to add sources to Trickle, to import them from other apps, to export them if you need them to. Trickle should be your repository for your knowledge, for your insights, and ultimately help you to create wisdom out of it. And so even with that, we have a lot to do, a lot on our plate. And it's crucial that we find people that try it out now, share with us their feedback. We need an economic engine. We don't want to get too dependent from corporations or advertising and so on. So at the moment, we fund this out of our own pocket, and we already started with a kind of support model. You can sign up for a premium version of Trickle that gives you slightly more features. The core of Trickle should always be free. I mean, we want as many people as possible to learn, and learning is the access to be able to afford more things. So we hope that a lot of people go with us the path, support us, when they are using Trickle. And there's a very interesting part that we are going to develop in the next couple of months. That's going to be, if you share on Trickle, or maybe I can hand over to Phil, because that's more his material.
Take me to the reward system, Phil.
Yeah.
I guess it's really about, obviously I sometimes explain Trickle as a two-sided platform. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but you've got, on one side, you've got your demand coming from people wanting to consume content, and you've got your supply of people providing content. In effect, the oversimplification comes because that can be the same person, and it's actually a circle rather than a two-sided platform. It's, you know, you're consuming, you're adding, you're creating, and then you're potentially publishing. So it's kind of a virtuous circle. And we did that purposefully, and we really want to allow people to create as much as possible. And in our thoughts about how we develop a sustainable platform, it's always been, this should be something the users of the platform pay for, because in that sense, they're bought into it. Two, our incentives are correct because we are serving them as customers rather than advertisers or any other kind of stakeholder. Our main stakeholder is always the learner. So we want to keep it that way. So we'd like individuals who are lifelong learners to subscribe to Trickle, and we've developed a kind of concept around a premium membership that provides them with extra benefits. And what we're planning to do with this premium revenue that comes out is not keep it all for ourselves, but to give back to the community in terms of the people who share content, the people who share their insights could get a kickback in terms of,
sure,
if people are accessing that article, they get a micropayment of, you know, a proportion of the revenues that we create. So it kind of feeds the circle of, if you're sharing content, it gives you a piece back.
Right. No, that's great. And you know, it's a reward system that incentivizes quality information, you know, deep knowledge, participation, these kinds of things. That obviously there's lots to think through there about how you quality control that, but, you know, fantastic. Yeah. Gentlemen, what's your, you know, what are you looking forward to in the next, like, so now you've launched, you're there. Sort of my last question is, like, what's your next move? Is it just, is it responding to these comments that you got from your launch on Product Hunt? Is it, you have a nice new feature that you're going to be putting out there that maybe you can give us a sneak peek of, or I guess, you know, reveal the curtain to, or, you know, is it just sort of, you're still drinking from a fire hose and we're hanging on by the seat of our pants?
I think we're still in the middle of the upward trend in terms of our user base, and we need to come to a place of you know, dealing with that increased interest, and I think maintaining the momentum is certainly a focus for the next couple of months. But we do have, as Achim mentioned, a full pipeline of features that we're working on to bring out. A redesign of sort of the main landing page for logged in users will be coming soon. So there's some exciting stuff. What we definitely want to do is bring in a lot more. So we've kind of become obsessed with the topic of learning science, and recognizing that learning is so fundamental to everything that we do. It's the basis for acquiring any other skill. So without learning, you have nothing. And we don't spend a lot of time, or most people don't spend a lot of time thinking about how am I learning? The metacognition aspect of it, in effect of, how can I make this more efficient? How can I be better at learning? So there's loads of insight out there that we've discovered around learning science that I was amazed. How come nobody's ever told me this? How come I don't know that reading and rereading is one of the worst learning strategies out there? How come I don't know that I should be testing myself periodically? How come I don't know that spaced repetition is one of the best ways to make sure you never forget all of the great stuff that you've learned? And that's the kind of stuff that I think we really need to build into the product and make sure that Trickle is the best way to discover knowledge, curate it, gather it, and then ensure that it remains in your brain. So ideally, you don't have to use Trickle to go search for it, because it's there. It's always there.
Gentlemen.
Maybe can I add one thing, Stephen?
Of course.
Because that's a perfect opportunity. Of course, we're thrilled about that feedback, and we are in discussion with users and also listeners of yours. If that strikes a chord, right, our mission that we are on, then we're happy to get in touch, right? These people should get in touch with us. We need so much. Or we have so much things on our plate that we need support. We need probably more developers. We need people that want to support us maybe on our mission. We are not probably a good fit for the typical VC model, but that doesn't mean that we cannot benefit from a certain kind of investment or something like that. So we are just at the start. We have tons of work behind us already, 2 years that went into this, and we really think we are onto something that can revolutionize learning. And so people that are interested in that and lifelong learning and want to be a part of that, then they can always reach out to us, and we're happy to talk and share. We'll be very open for that, and I think there's a lot to discover for the whole ecosystem, right? Because the learning ecosystem shouldn't be an ecosystem, at least that's our point of view, where you hold close guard of your good ideas and so on. Quite the opposite, right? You should share, you should collaborate, you should work together and combine your strengths, because I mean, it's one planet, right? And we are all we are recognizing that now more than ever.
Absolutely. So, gentlemen, the app is called Trickle. You can get it at trickle.app. Achim and Phil, thank you so much for being on the show today. I look forward to circling back 6 months or so from now and seeing where you're at. But I wish you all the best of luck.
Love to.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again for tuning into today's episode of the eLearning Podcast. If you like what you've learned today in this episode, I encourage you to either follow us or subscribe to us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. And please do share this episode with 1 or 2 of your colleagues or friends. Also, I just want to remind you that you can level up your online learning game with all of the information that's available at the eLearning Success Summit. You can get your free ticket at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And finally, you can also stay up to date on everything that's important, all the news and the resources for e-learning professionals at LMSPulse.com. Get our free newsletter by just going to LMSPulse.com today. Thanks again.